again, I can't stress to you all enough that we have to have hail as a key part of that conversation. Mitigation, Carol knows that she's going to get me up on my soapbox that I will try not to be on for very long. I absolutely agree that mitigation is key, but, and this is a huge but, right now, I have a very strong opinion that the insurance companies are doing, and not necessarily the insurance companies, but the modeling companies that they use are doing an absolutely terrible job of including the mitigation work that in particular communities and states are doing in order to actually mitigate their communities, their counties. I mean, just think about the easiest example, the fires that we had in the Front Range over the last month. They've been put down. We didn't have the fire that was burning by Kim Carroll. The reason why it didn't become a Marshall style event was because of the air resources that the state has invested in over the years. When you talk to these modeling companies, they don't build that. And I'm painting with a broad brush and too broad of a brush when I'm talking about the modeling companies. There's different levels of sophistication, but the biggest ones don't do a good enough job at all of building, and maybe don't build anything into, when we're talking about those kind of wildfire fighting resources, into their model. So I've continued to harp about that. Like I said, it's a bit of a soapbox. That was the short version of my soapbox, because I can get very riled up about it. But Commissioner Delcamper, I think you were next.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks, Commissioner, and thanks, Carol, for all the work that you do, and also your willingness to always be available to talk through these issues with us. I have a two-part question. I'm going to try and keep it tight, given the row of hands that are up that I see on the screen. We held a town hall on homeowners insurance about a week or two ago. And Commissioner, we had a number of leaders from your agency who were terrific. And they talked a lot about the work that the division is doing to gather community input and community stories around some of the very themes that we're talking about. One example included a realtor who commented at the town hall that she was showing a home to a potential resident who learned that homeowners insurance would cost $19,000, and then decided that she wasn't going to move to Evergreen, which is bad for our local economy, of course. The other big theme that came out, and neither of these will be a newsflash to you, but I think they're critical in terms of potential legislative remedies in 2025, goes back to this issue of mitigation and the strong concern from homeowners and even communities that are doing really good work around defensible space, mitigation, ignition resistant materials, and more, who are not seeing that count toward the reduction or just even affordable homeowners insurance if they can get it at all. My question is this. One, do you see any remedies to help address these common themes in the upcoming 2025 legislative session? And if so, what might those be? And two, could you, Commissioner, just talk a bit further for the commissioners on this call about how the division is gathering that community feedback, what your timeline is, and how you'll use that information from community members to help tackle some of the issues we've been talking about today? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I missed that event, Commissioner. We had planned to take my son to Disneyland for his first time before that town hall got scheduled. So I was sad to miss it. But so a lot to unpack there. Let me start with the town halls that we've been doing. So we've been holding a series of town halls. We really started them last fall going into the 2024 legislative session. We then restarted them after the 2024 legislative session, and we're going to roll those into in-person town halls around the state that we're still putting the schedule together on. It's going to be the second half of September and into October, and we'll share that information with CCI, of course, and we're working with CCI to try and partner with you all where we're going to be having some of those town halls. So we've got a lot of feedback. So those town halls, what we were really trying to do is two things. One, we wanted to educate consumers, educate the public about why everything is happening the way that it's happening. Carol touched on a lot of those issues at the front end. It's the reinsurance market. It is the cost of goods. It's the modeling software too. I mean, there's a whole congruence of things that are happening at one time. And to Carol's point, that has made this the toughest market that the tightest market that folks have seen in a generation, in 30 or 40 years. So that was issue number one. But issue number two was we really were trying to push everybody and anybody to come with whatever solutions. And in particular, we wanted to hear from the industry. And when I say the industry, I mean the individual carriers, most that in the best case scenario, but anybody that has any kind of solutions that they want to bring to the table. We haven't had a ton of solutions brought our way. So we've heard a lot from consumers about the challenges like that we've talked about, that Commissioner Mitchell brought up, and a lot of the same types of stories, Commissioner Del Kemper, that you all heard at that town hall a couple of weeks ago about just the basic challenges, right? Those incredibly high insurance rates, the increases, year-over-year increases that are really crushing folks. As far as how all of those stories are going to be used, the interim wildfire committee did have a number of bills that they discussed at their last meeting or their last hearing, which was, when was that, Carol? Was that last week? I think it was last week.
We were both there. We both testified.
Wasn't there? That was so
like
ours was a few weeks ago when we were both there. But so I think there's going to be legislative solutions through that committee, Commissioner, that will continue to be discussed. We're working to see what we can figure out on our end, working through our process. And obviously we'll talk with everybody and anybody depending on where exactly we land with our process. But I do think that this is going to be front and center this legislative session. And obviously, if that is the case, regardless of whether it is our agenda bill or it's someone else's agenda bill, we will be part of the conversation and try to steer things in the right direction. Because from my vantage point, right? So from my vantage point, we have to find solutions for the affordability problem, but those solutions have to at least in part encourage more competition in the state, right? I want more insurance companies to be going up into Evergreen. Right now, we only have one or two that are willing to write any policies up there. We need to figure out ways to incentivize them to more insurance companies to write everywhere in the state. So that's going to be a focus of kind of our thought process and our thinking. And that'll be where we try and steer things going forward.
And I just wanted to follow up with you, Leslie. It's good to see you. And as you know, I try to be at every table where the industry can talk through these issues, move them forward, serve on the Fire Commission with Leslie, on the HSAC committee, also on the Fair Plan Board. So we are at the table, and I do think we're at a tipping point. And I think the conversation combined with the market conditions, combined with the escalation of risk, has pushed us to a place where these can't be conversations anymore. We're having the conversations, but we need to start working to some actionable solutions. When it comes to mitigation, we do need to scale that up. It needs to be scaled up and it needs to be measurable for the insurance companies to find insurability in the mitigation. We know the science shows us that we can reduce the risk if we do it at a personal level and a community level. When we testified before the Wildfire Matters Review Committee, I testified with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They're coming up with a wildfire prepared neighborhood designation. That's something I think that as we work through these issues, we're able to get these designations both at a personal level, a community level. As the commissioner said, we also at a parallel track need to be focused on fortified standards for hail mitigation, because that really is our biggest driver of insurance premiums when it comes to affordability.